Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Lottie and this is round 13 of the TBR Scrolls. 13. Unlucky 13? I guess we'll find out. Yeah, hi guys, welcome back to my bi-monthly TBR game, the TBR Scrolls, which is based on the video game Skyrim, where I move around a board collecting prompts to determine what I'm going to read over the next 2 months. If you are new here and this is your first episode of the TBR Scrolls, there will be a link in the description and in the cards up above as well to the playlist so you can see what has happened so far and get a full rundown of the board and the rules and all that jazz. I'm very excited to do the next 2 months TBR. I have had a very successful May and June, which I will talk you through in just a moment, but I just want to say, like, I'm just really excited. Like, I look forward to doing these videos every 2 months, and part of me wishes I could do them monthly, but I just cannot handle having to read like 4 to 5 books every single month on top of like compulsory reads, but I really enjoy doing these every 2 months, so yeah, I'm just really excited. So as per usual, let's see how I did in May and June and whether or not I completed my TBR for the last 2 months. So the first book selected for me was Dumpling by Julie Murphy, and I pulled this out of the mystery mug and I have read this one. The next prompt was Vermina, and the prompts on that was to read a spooky book, and for that I chose Into the Drowning Deep by Mara Grant, and I have read this one. I then pulled Stendar, which was to read a book with LGBT+ rep. For this I chose Solitaire by Alice Oseman, and I have read this one. The next prompt I got was Zenithar, and the prompt for this was to sort my Goodreads TBR by the highest rated, and at the top of that list was Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas, and I have read this one. And finally I pulled the Nord card. The prompt on this was to read a retelling. For this I chose Gleam by Raven Kennedy, and I am currently reading this. Obviously I have quite a while to go, but I'm filming this quite early on in June, so I feel like I'm definitely going to finish this book before the end of the month, especially because it's like part of my favourite series. So I'm going to say that I have succeeded with the last 2 months TBR. So yeah, May and June was very successful. I will admit most of the reading has been done in June thanks to Kingdom of Ash, but you will hear more about that in my May and June wrap up, which I have decided to combine because I did not read that much in May. But that's enough of the past. Let's do the rolls for July and August. Last time we landed on this people and places space nestled nicely between Winterhold and Windhelm. So obviously we'll be starting from there this time. Let's jump in with roll number 1. That is a 4. And that is the Windhelm city space. So the first space that I landed on was Windhelm, and as you guys know, when I land on the city spaces, I choose somebody else's TBR game to fulfill a prompt. And the person I have selected to do for this month is Chloe from Persistent Bookworm's TBR game, which is TBR Mash. I really love this TBR game. I think it is so simple but so much fun. I will leave a link in the description to Chloe's latest video in that little series so that you guys can check it out for yourself. Go and show Chloe some love. Her videos are so fun. So let's get on with my version of TBR Mash. So I've got my version of TBR Mash all set up here. The way that Chloe does her TBR game is it is a mash, which is based on the old childhood game that kind of determined things that would happen in your life, such as where you were going to live, the number of kids you were going to have, who you were going to marry. What I have done for my version is I have mash set up in the same way that Chloe does, and instead of selecting prompts, we're going to use people and places cards, and we're going to use Aedra and Daedra cards. So as you can kind of guess, this means that I am going to be selecting 3 books for this one prompt for the TBR Scrolls. I'm feeling confident this month, what can I say? So obviously what I'll be doing is when I get a people and places card, I will choose a book for that prompt. When I get an Aedra and Daedra card, I'll choose a book for that prompt. And I'm using the same rules as Chloe for the mash. So M is mansion, which is to read a book over 500 pages. A is apartment, so that is to read a small book. S is shack, so to read a book that I have been putting off. And H is house, which is comforting, so the prompt on that is to choose a book to mood read. Chloe does a random number generator to determine how many she needs to count, but I'm going to use a D20 and roll that to determine how many I need to count before we start taking things off. Let's do the roll. So I have got a 10, So I'm going to count 10 times before I take one off until we end up with a prompt. So you guys don't need to see me count, so let's speed this up. Okay, so we have our first one, which is actually a people and places prompt. And the prompt on this is Dawn Star, which is to read a standalone book. Don't ask me why I thought it was going to be a good idea to choose 3 books when I did TBR Mash. I just wanted the challenge. So yeah, the first prompt we got was Dawn Star, and the prompt on this is to read a standalone. So for this, I have chosen Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie, and I've been very smart with this because this is the Catch Up Book Club book for July and August. So I'm using my brain. I'm putting a compulsory read on the actual TBR, so this is going to make things a lot easier for me. It is a standalone in the first lore world, so it does count. It is the first of a series of standalones. They're still set in the same universe, but it's its own standalone story, so that's the first one that I'm going to be reading in July and August. Okay, so let's choose the second book. Okay, so we've got our Aedra and Daedra prompt, and it is Periite, who is the Daedric Prince of Pestilence, and the prompt on this is to read a new release. So the second prompt I got from TBR Mash was Periite, who is the Prince of Pestilence, and the prompt on this is to read a new release. This was actually a lot harder for me to choose than you would think, because I don't read that many new releases and I don't have that many new releases on my TBR. But I did decide to go with Shanghai Immortal by A.Y. Chow. This is the June Fairy Loot, so not only is it a new release, it is also my newest acquisition, which is quite fitting. But I don't really know too much about the plot of this, other than it is about a half vampire, half nine-tailed fox demon person, and it's set in 1920s Shanghai. So it's very different to the kind of book that I usually pick up. But I was looking at my Fairy Loot books that have been released this year, and this one was the shortest, so I decided to go with it in the end. So yeah, I will be reading this over the next 2 months as well. Okay, the moment of truth. Am I going to end up with a book that's over 500 pages? Or am I going to end up with a short book? Let's count. 10. Mathematically, I should have been able to predict this. My final prompt is to choose a book over 500 pages. And finally, to bite me in the ass, was Mansion, which is to read a book over 500 pages. I had a feeling that this was going to happen. I had a feeling this was going to happen because it's the 1 month I decided to choose 3 books versus 1. So of course it was going to happen. I have decided to go with Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Last Hours trilogy, and it is the June book for By the Angel Along, which is hosted by Becca. So I'm very excited to get to this. All I really know about this series is that it's following the children of characters from the Infernal Devices series, and I really enjoyed that. It's set in early 20th century London, I think. I've met a few of the characters through some of the short stories we've read for By the Angel Along, but I'm really looking forward to delving into the plot of this, seeing what it's all about. It is obviously also the final thing we're going to be reading for By the Angel Along. We have this final trilogy, and then we are all caught up with what has been published so far in the world of the Shadowhunters. So yeah, it's like the beginning of the end, but I'm really excited to get to this one. I don't have a physical copy of it just yet. I will be reading the audiobook. All 3 of them for the series are on Scribd if you were interested. And I also think that I've reserved the ebook version from my library so that I can at least kind of try and follow along with that. But I've read most of the Shadowhunters books on audio over the last 1.5 years, so it's only fitting that I carry on with my little tradition and carry on reading them through audio. So thank you TBR Mash for our little interlude where we already have 3 books on the TBR after 1 roll. I've done it to myself. Let's get on with roll number 2. Roll number 2. That is a 5. That is an Aedra and Daedra. And we have Dibella, the Goddess of Love and Beauty, read a romantic book. Roll number 2, it gave me Dibella, who is the Goddess of Love and Beauty, and the prompt on this is to read a romantic book. And I again had a really difficult time trying to decide what I wanted to read for this prompt, because most of the books on my TBR would fit this. Most of the stuff I read has a romance in it in one way or another. But in the end, I decided to go for Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake, and this is the second book in the Bright Falls series of standalones, which follows a group of friends who end up in some kind of sapphic romance. The first one was Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and I did quite enjoy that one, and in this we are following Delilah Green's stepsister Astrid. We met Astrid in the first book and she was very, very standoffish, and she was also in a heterosexual relationship, so I feel like this is going to be the discovery of Astrid's bisexuality as she develops a relationship with Jordan, who is renovating a house, I believe. I'm very, very excited to get to this one. This is the Afterlight edition, and I don't know if it was intentional, but trans rights. Roll number 3. That is a 6. That is an enemies and monsters space, and we have pulled a frost troll. So this is a frost troll which have very kindly done a surprise attack. You have been killed by a horde of frost trolls. Go back to the start. I'm so close to Rifton and I have died, so I have to go all the way back to Markov. So you guys saw the effect of roll number 3. It was a frost troll, a horde of frost trolls in fact, who have killed my little character, little sweet roll merchant, going to Rifton. Nearly got there and had to go back to the start. So that's this prompt. Obviously there's no book that's chosen for it. It just means that we go back to the beginning and I have to make my way across the board again. Roll number 4. And that is a 2. Another Aja and Daedra, and this one is a guard card, so I will very happily save this for use in the future. And this says, wait, I know you. This card gives you the power to skip a punishment or a blue space, keep it with you until it is used, and roll again. Roll number 4. I could have been very lucky and gotten this before I was killed by the frost trolls, but I will save it for the future. It might come in handy with this already growing TBR I have for the next 2 months. So if you guys weren't aware, guard cards are basically ways for me to block a punishment if I don't finish my TBR during the 2 months, or if I do end up landing on a blue space on the board, I can use the guard card against that as well and avoid the negative action that the enemies and monsters cards can do. So I will be holding on to this until a later time. I'm allowed to use it at any point when I play my TBR game, so I will be holding on to this for the future. Roll number 5. That is a 6. And that is a white space. Roll number 5 was a white space, and white spaces mean I select a book from the mystery mug, which has the name of a lot of my TBR written on a slip of paper inside it. Again, it's not up to date, but I will be choosing a book from here. I think at some point I am going to start updating it. I don't think I've updated it since 2023. So these are some of my older books on my TBR in here. So let's choose a book. So I have one here. Let's see what it is. It is The Shining by Stephen King. I am quite excited to get to this one. It is on my 23 for 2023 list, so at least I'll be making some progress on that. But yeah, this is The Shining by Stephen King. It is about a family. The dad ends up looking after a hotel over the winter when it closes and they get snowed in. Very famous movie based on it if you haven't seen that, and I love the film, so I'm very, very interested to get to the book and see what it's all about. I know it's a lot of people's favourite Stephen King as well, but I'm just really looking forward to reading more King over the next 2 months. Roll number 6. Another 6. And that is a People and Places, and we have got Rifton, read a book with an urban setting. And the final prompt was Rifton, which is to read a book with an urban setting. Again, I had a hard time choosing a book to fit this prompt because there is a lot of books that could fulfill the idea of an urban setting. A book set in a city doesn't have to be a modern city, which is why I have chosen Babel by R.F. Kuang. It's set in the city of Oxford, so I feel like it is very, very fitting for this prompt. I have wanted to read this for ages. It is my first Fairy Loot book, so it's about time I got to it. I think it was August 2022's book. I'm only just getting to it. So yeah, this is Fable by Air of Kwang. Everybody raved about it when it came out last year. I think it is more dark academia than fantasy, and I don't really know too much about it other than it's about the Tower of Babel, and it's about a Chinese student who is studying at Oxford in 1836. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know what it's about. I do feel like I'm going to be too dumb to understand the book. Like, it gives me that vibe, but I've not read a lot of dark academia as well, so I'm looking forward to diving into this genre and dipping my toes in and seeing if I like it. This is another one that was on my 23 for 2023, so at least I'm making some more progress on that list as well. I'm scared. I feel like it was a bad decision to put this really quite long book on this TBR when I'm also reading this, and Chain of Gold, but I like a challenge, so yeah. So these are 5 of the 6 books that I'm going to be reading in July and August. It is a pretty chunky TBR. I have probably set myself up for failure, but it's 6 books. It's 6 books in 2 months. That's 3 books for each month. Like, it's doable. It's definitely doable, and potentially I will have space to mood read maybe a few graphic novels here and there as well if I'm feeling like it. But I'm very, very optimistic about this TBR. I'm very excited to read all of the books. I've got a few in there that are kind of a bit out of my comfort zone, but I'm excited to dip out of my comfort zone. I feel like the last few months I've been very, very fantasy heavy and very like fantasy romance heavy, really, where I just feel like I've been reading a lot of the same books, and maybe it's because I finally don't have Throne of Glass on my shoulders and I've finished that series that I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I feel free and I can read whatever I want now. But I'm really looking forward to reading the books on this TBR. I've managed to get both of my compulsory reads on there as well. Obviously in August I will be reading Chain of Iron, which is the 2nd book in the Last Hour series as well, but we'll talk more about what I'm going to read in August when we get to it. But this is what we're looking at so far for the next 2 months. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun playing TBR Mash, so if you haven't already, please do go check out Chloe's channel. She's so much fun, she's so lovely. She's currently doing a Christoph along where they read a different J. Christoph book every single month. I really would have loved to join in with that because I love J. Christoph, but I can kind of only cope with 2 compulsory reads in a month at the moment, and with doing Catch Up Book Club and By the Angel along, I kind of just wasn't able to jump in with it. Maybe a little bit further down the line I will join in with Christoph along because I obviously love J. Christoph. So yeah, if you haven't, go check out Chloe's channel, go check out Christoph along and show her some love. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching yet again. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below what you are reading in July and August, if you have read any of the books that I'm going to be reading, and what you thought of them, and which one you think I should pick up first. If you haven't already and you would like to be, please do consider subscribing. I post a new video every single week. And that is it from me today, guys. Bye!